Loving life on a breath of fresh footy. Welcome to the PM sessions brought to you by, of course, the Breath of Fresh Footy. I have my great friend and co-host Phil here. Brutal Phil will give you the honest truth, and I reckon we just go straight into the EPL games last weekend. Again, sorry we're a little bit late with this, but some of these results we just need to dissect and think about, so we can give an honest and brutal review. My thoughts and your thoughts, Phil, particularly on the Aston Villa versus Leeds United. I know you're a Leeds fan this year, and they absolutely pumped Villa 3-0, sending Villa for their first defeat of the year.
Yeah, well, after Villa's exploits the previous week, I was a bit worried. And in the first half an hour of that game, I don't know, it looked pretty even. Bamford, who I think I'm going to give myself a little gold star here, because in their first game in the Premier League this year against Liverpool, he missed an easy chance, or he didn't put it on target, or however you like to say.
Mm-hmm.
But then he got one, and I said then that if he can get one, when you're a new striker in the Premier League, it does something to could do something to your whole season. And when you get three in a game, that can't be luck. Beelzebub is alive and well. I just fear for the teams they face, and that's what they did. They were not brilliant in this game,
mm-hmm.
but they just have this extra gear with all that fitness work that they do in the last 30 minutes in particular, where Aston Villa, good football team, actually playing great football, really kind of classic English football.
Mm-hmm.
Leeds were just too strong.
Absolutely. And the most interesting thing about this round was that a lot of these teams that are in the top four that aren't playing European football are really needing to be able to keep their win-loss ratio down, because, when the fixtures sort of settle down a bit, the top teams, or the top six that we call, will get stronger because they're not having to play as many games. But already with this result, because Villa hadn't lost a game, they're already starting to lose points. So this works into the benefit of teams like Liverpool, City, United, Arsenal, because they're starting to take points away. So it was a very, very important game for Villa. And they got pumped at home. Absolutely pumped. Bamford on fire. Love that guy. He is kicking some beauties at the moment.
Yeah, his confidence will go up. The only thing, with Leeds is the way they run.
Mm.
Does it mean we haven't seen this for a while? So will they get more injuries because they run too hard every game? That's the kind of their go-to game, really. They're looking a little less adventurous. Maybe other teams have worked out what they're doing. I'm not sure. Although you say Villa got pumped, I think Villa also had a few chances in this game. A little shout out to our Optus friends. I know we weren't going to discuss Champions League, but wow. There was a game, Juve versus Barca. Juve had 3 goals scored. It was an offside hat-trick from our man up front.
Mm-hmm.
And because Barca scored, so they said, well, it was a very convincing and comprehensive victory. And sorry guys, but football isn't like that. But anyway, let's continue with the Premier
League. I don't understand that commentary. I hate it. That's why I've started the watch-alongs. That's why Breath of Fresh Footy started our watch-alongs, because we're sick of this rubbish commentary. You know what I mean? And, sometimes we might be a bit negative when we're commentating on our own teams. That's because we know how they play. So we're more than happy to do it. But when it's a good game, we're at least happy to acknowledge it's a good game. These bloody Optus Sport pundits. No wonder why Australian soccer is so pathetic, because they're just so negative. The best way they can describe it is the only way you can play is just kick backwards and keep possession. I don't get it, Phil. I don't get it.
But you're going to, the other thing they do is, for example, there are a couple of beautiful nutmegs on the Liverpool right back. And the commentary, the depressed sounding Englishman, he's going, oh, well, I'm not very happy about that then. And he's very knowledgeable and stuff, but watch the game unfolding. Yeah. When someone does a nutmeg on a player, that's when the crowd goes wild. That gets them excited. It's not whether they keep the ball for another 8,000 touches. This is fucking upper middle management watching. It's not the game of the people. Sorry.
No. Well put. Exactly. And, many fans would be thinking exactly the same thing. And That's why we loved the game. It was such a good game. And then the next game that night, West Ham and Man City. I think West Ham is having a phenomenal season. They are playing excellent footy. They were right on top on that first half watching that game, and they played brilliantly. The only reason why City actually came back into the game was our man Foden. He was on fire. That guy, what an absolute beauty on the left foot. And he was the main reason why City came back into the game. He opened their play up, and that guy, for me, was the player of the round. It was such a convincing performance in a half of footy. Absolutely on point.
I agree with you, Matty. I've seen him. The freer he is, the more confidence they should just tell him, look, get on the ball and do some stuff. Because, yeah, I agree. Excellent player.
He's brilliant. And the thing is, what I love is that he's going to take all this pressure off De Bruyne and Aguero when they actually start getting back to full fitness. He's going to take all this brunt of them. Then he's going to get all this attention. I really see City being an absolute threat. And it's great to actually see some really free-flowing football for them, because normally they're always so tactical all the time. But they're adding the tactics with free-flowing football because of Foden. I think they're going to be extraordinarily dangerous come the rest of the season. And what did you think of the game in particular? I thought West Ham was great, though. They were so solid.
A very physical side. To be honest, I don't remember this game too well, because mostly I remember City having the ball and spraying around the park. Although it was perhaps more free-flowing. I just can't watch them. They're not the same team without David Silva.
Yeah.
And also Gabriel Jesus, just different players. Kevin De Bruyne, he's like an ingredient. He's like a huge ingredient, but he needs other ingredients to catalyse what he does.
But this is why I think they're going to be dangerous. They're going to do like what Richmond's done in the AFL, get all their players when they need them, come towards the middle and the end of the season. I reckon they're going to give a really big title chase. I reckon they're going to be right up there. And I reckon they'll win it. And it's because of players like Foden now who are playing really well, getting them through tough periods. They're still getting points when they're playing not great footy. That's all you need to do. And they've still got a game in hand. And then the next game that I watched was the most boring game I've ever seen. It was United and Chelsea. And I thought this was going to be the banter game until we go to who knows who's always going forward, Arsenal. But this 0-0 game, I watched 20 minutes of it. I just turned it off. It was so boring. It looked like two tired teams because of the European schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you're being a bit kind to them there. I feel a bit more angry, like as a customer. I mean, I hate that word, but I'm a customer. So part of my custom was that I'd had a very long day, but I thought I'll stay up, and I was in bed with my phone, and I thought I've just got to stay up and watch a bit of this match because it's going to be so exciting. And what it was, two managers very scared to lose. So they kind of had to play that way. And neither of them lost. I think they've both gotten what they wanted out of the match. Complete and out of control. But for the fan and the customer, forget it. No good.
It was just woeful. I couldn't stand it. And, we'll go on to the Arsenal game in a second. But I thought the game that Liverpool and Sheffield United play, I watched a little bit of this. Sheffield United got the penalty, got the 1-0 lead. Liverpool came back. I didn't think they played particularly well. I think Sheffield United's starting to get a bit of their mojo back since they've scored their goal against Arsenal. They looked actually very, very good in that game. So, if you watched it, what did you think? If you didn't, no problems at all.
Was this the game when Fabinho got injured with his hamstring?
No, that was Champions League.
I'm getting my matches mixed up. Well, anyway, so this was the game then when Fabinho stepped in for Van Dijk and looked very comfortable as always. I mean, these Brazilian footballers, they understand the game. Having said that, now I'm looking back, they weren't really clicking that much.
No.
Sometimes I remember towards the end of last season, they looked a little bit like a team operating too much to a system, which is the way they operate best. And if the flair players don't get that little bit of luck or that bit of inspiration to make something happen, but they still won. They still showed that kind of determination. It was good to see. I think Jota scored a header in this game, right?
Beauty. Yeah.
That'll do his confidence a world of good. And so stay tuned for Liverpool. We don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and we'll get on to maybe that little injury and what you think is going to happen with Liverpool. I think it's very, very bad for them in particular because they should have bought another defender. Anyways, that's for another conversation. The game of the round ended up being, for me, was the Southampton and Everton game, the 2-0. Oh, man, Southampton, they are playing good footy, and they looked really good the week before. And, of course, with Richarlison and a few others out because of red cards and stuff like that, I mean, it really shows when the depth of squad is not there, teams are going to get absolutely pumped in this season because the EPL is so even. And Southampton, having all their players in, yeah, they did really, really well. Very well deserved 2-0 victory.
I agree. I was a bit disappointed with Everton, but they've been performing a little bit above their station, if you like, for a while, so it was bound to come. Danny Ings up there, the way Southampton have been playing for years, actually, I think they're just a really good football side, like you said, win or lose, and tough opponents. And Everton just couldn't make it happen. But I think kind of through no fault of their own, perhaps. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But this is what I'm saying. These teams that are doing well at the moment that don't have the European football, when they play clubs that are in the same position as them, this is what's going to show who's going to be in the big boys, who's going to stay up in the top six. Because if these teams start taking points off each other, it only works into the favour of the bigger clubs. It only works in their favour. And it shows me with a couple of people who are out with Everton, they lose that sort of structure within their team. The depth of squad is a huge, huge issue. And this brings us to my rant of the week, which was the Arsenal and Leicester City. I just was so peeved. Absolutely woeful performance. You have 60% possession. You have that many chances in the first half, and Bellerin should have scored in the 77th minute. And then you defend like that and let probably the most prolific forward you leave him with 20 metres of space. And he literally just has to toe poke or head poke the ball. I cannot believe it. It was just woeful. And that's
what a beautiful
3 points.
Cross that was. That was a beautiful cross. I mean, that was beautiful classic play. And it's a bit of a risk. You don't often see wingers do that anymore.
No.
Clip a short crossed ball into the box to diving header. But I'm sorry, Arsenal, it doesn't surprise me.
No.
I know you're a fan of Arteta in general, but oh boy, what is going on there? They're trying to play Spanish keep ball here, and it's not working.
Well, he came out in the week saying that they were tired, but nothing excuses that sort of defending. I mean, it was a fantastic pass, but you see in the lead-up play, Gabriel was smacking some Brazilian at Mustafi, going like, make sure you man up because I've got to go to this player. So he was very clear with his instructions. And Mustafi's just like waltzing down, not giving a care in the world, and just left the most prolific scorer, the easiest of headers to get in. I mean, no goalkeeper would have had a chance of stopping that goal. And sure, and I think James Vardy's a great player, or Jamie Vardy's a great player. But any sort of forward, I don't care. It could be like under 10s. If they get a pass like that, they're going to score if there's no defender next to them. So it was utterly rubbish. And yeah, I was so disappointed. I don't need to rant anymore. I think Mustafi needs to leave the club. He's a terrible defender. He's always been a liability. And that 3 points, if we had got 1 point, we would have been in 5th position still. Just shows you when you lose 3 points, at this stage in the EPL, you drop 5 spots. So we're in 10th. And I think we deserve to be there at the moment. We're playing absolutely rubbish football. So
look, Arteta was, I forget what his role was, but he was never a star. Let's put it like that. He was not a star like Lampard was at Chelsea. So his whole mindset was, as I imagine since birth, would be to do the right things, to make conservative decisions. I mean, that's the kind of person he is, and that's what he's getting out of Arsenal. And it's simply not doesn't have the intuition enough. He thinks it can all be done on a computer screen. Just by looking at him, I read this. And when you've got great footballers with those skills, and you've got to say to them, just look around the game, see what's there, do what you want. There's a great doco at the moment about Messi, where they talk about how he's got the least running figures of any player,
Mm-hmm.
the least number of sprints, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 5 minutes of the game, you can count him out because all he's doing is he's taking it all in.
Yeah.
His massive brain, his quick brain is taking it all in, so that when he decides to do something, is the right moment, he makes the right decision, and it's effective.
But again, this thing that I'm talking to you about, it's the depth of squad. We were playing absolutely fine with David Luiz in the team, and people bag him, but he actually adds experience and structure into our team. And to be honest with you, had he not been injured, I would have probably seen that as a 0-0 draw. You know what I mean? Because he has that structure, that communication with Gabriel. They both speak Brazilian with each other. They know what they're doing. And as soon as somebody goes out like that, and apparently our best defender is Mustafi, if that's the case, we're going to struggle all year because there's no depth. He's just not good enough for the EPL.
Well, Matty, that's your defence, which we were hoping. I remember you talked earlier about that had been shored up somehow, and I agree, David Luiz, when he's paired with the right player, Gabriel, it's working. But what about up front? Lacazette, I mean, some horrible challenges. He doesn't know how to try. When he tries, he gets it all wrong. I think he's a moron. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that only time will tell if he can actually turn around this thing. But again, to his defence, and you got to put it this way. You score 3 and 3, right? And then all of a sudden you're benched for a whole game and a half and you're not playing. What does that do to your confidence? I mean, that's terrible man management. Terrible man management by Arteta. You score 3 goals in 3 games and then you get benched and then you're expected to come in. Why are you getting benched when you've scored 3 and 3? That's my point as well.
Fatigue. It's kind of intellectual management rather than taking into account emotional management. Like you said, when you're a striker, when you walk off the pitch in each game and you've scored 3 and 3, you're not tired.
No.
Because you relax more in the next game. You don't try as hard because you're sure you'll score again. And then you try at the right moment. This is the thing.
Yeah, and I'd rather them just if they're in such good form, just keep them going. If they get injured, at least with Arsenal, we do have the depth of squad with our strike force because you've got Joe Willock, you've got Eddie Nketiah, you've got Pepe. Man, we got plenty of strike force, and they were very, very instrumental in our Europa League game that we'll talk about later. But we're absolutely fine up forward. So just keep playing these guys when they're kicking goals. And then if they do break down, it's inevitable. It's a season that's going to be full of games, full of congestion with the fixtures. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So I don't get this management, and that's what gets me angry, because we got the personnel. And now Lacazette's playing like a 9-year-old schoolboy, throwing his pram out of the sandbox. It's just ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it? It's obvious. And I'm not trying to be mean here. That's just watching the game. He just looks so disinterested, right? He should have nailed 2 goals in that game.
Yeah, I think so. And, Pierre-Patrick Aubameyang, I mean, one of my favourite players. I loved it when Dortmund went on that run when he was playing for them. And I think he's been good for Arsenal, but he does need someone who can see the pass really early and at the right moment. And who is there? They don't have that creative midfielder. We've been ranting about this before. If I was manager, I would try Pepe through the middle. I think and just say, look, you're going to lose the ball a lot, but just try it on occasionally. We don't have to keep it for 95% of the match.
Oh, man, Pepe. Oh, today's game. Oh, that was the goal of the Europa League this round. That was just phenomenal. Did you see it? On his right foot. Oh, you just go and watch that replay. Absolute class. On his wrong foot, absolutely banged it past the keeper. No chance. What an absolute ripper. But, for us, I want to see Reece Nelson play in the team. This guy is phenomenal. He's very creative. absolutely instrumental today as well in the Europa League. And he's 20 years old. And you know what I love about him? He's actually got some pace with some creativity, so he can break the line. And that's the problem with us. We look so slow. We look so slow compared to our rivals and arch nemesis, Tottenham, who looked just really quick. And they had a very, very good victory against Burnley away. Any sort of victory away, a clean sheet, is a good win, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, Spurs are just looking very dangerous. I think, did Bale get on in that game or not? I don't think he did get on in that game, which is maybe, I don't know why they keep resting him so much. He came on the other week and he he looked a little bit, he sprinted his heart out and then he got a little tired, but still I'd play him for his brain. But then again, who's he competing against? And Kane is just absolutely clinical. I mean, this guy is, I would hate to defend against him. Still, I think Spurs kind of ground out that victory. Maybe as a result of what had gone on the week before, where they let that 3-0 lead slip. Yeah. But Spurs look ominous, and I think Mourinho's confidence is growing, and he's instilling that in the team. If Son can stay uninjured, this guy is. I mean, you talked about pace. Harry Kane's quickness of decision with finishing and passing, Son's physical pace down the pitch.
Yeah.
But then again, physical pace, I mean, I have to disagree with what you said about Arsenal. Arsenal athletically are quicker than a lot of teams. And look at my Leeds. Leeds are not maybe athletically as fast as some teams. But they somehow, their movement off the ball, their decision-making, it's risky. The more they risk and it goes right, the more they take risks.
Yeah, but it's not rigid. There's actually a clear game plan. They're trying to break every single zone. You can see with Leeds when they're playing really, really well. They're very intuitive. Like their coach, he knows exactly, or their manager, he knows exactly what the zones are. So he's like trying to exploit every single zone, and that's why they might give away the ball a bit. But they're trying everything they can to do that. Whereas I feel all we're trying to do is waste a bit of time, keep a bit of fresh legs, and then break on the counter-attack when they should be attacking. But also, it also really highlights how congested the fixtures are. If managers and coaches are saying that their players are tired, which they would never say at this time of the year, obviously there's a reason why things are the way that they are. And that's the only thing I worry about with Tottenham, is because they've had to play so many games because of qualifying into the Europa League. It just really, I'm interested to see over the next month and a half how they're going to continue this run of form. Do you know what I mean? Because to me, teams are going to have their lulls this season. It's going to be one of these seasons in the EPL where if you lose 4 or 5 games, you're probably going to be in contention for winning the thing, So how do you manage your game structure? How do you manage your players? How do you manage your depth of squad? How do you keep the injuries down? It's going to be a key factor.
Well, let's look at that.
I worry with them.
There are some games when you play that the more you play that game, the more frequency you play the game, talking about football, that the sharper you get at the game. And it's just a continuing level of sharpness, and then there's a plateau. The problem that we've got in the EPL, maybe even opposed to other leagues, is that some of the weaker teams, or the teams further down the ladder, shall we say, they are playing less games. They maybe don't have the sharpness towards the game in the game, but they're so physical. That even if you're getting sharper in the game, if you're physically tired, they can just batter you off the park.
Yeah.
And you that is a factor. That physical fatigue, that's real. So let's see. Season.
And this is, when you asked this question ages ago, why do I think the EPL is the best league in the world? It's because apart from any team, apart from Fulham, every other team, even West Brom, is matching it with these top teams because they're not having to play as many games. But it's this physical aspect and the skill of the front three of each of these teams. They just kick goals. Do you know what I mean? We've seen so many goals in each of the rounds. This was the lowest scoring round we've had so far in the year. And if you told me that, you're going to see 1-1s, 2-0s, 3-0 games, and that's going to be the lowest round so far of goals scored. It just shows me that every team, apart from Fulham at the moment, is just very dangerous in this league. You can't take a game for granted, whereas I feel in the other leagues you can a bit.
Yeah, but when you say the best league in the world, so there's an argument for that. And by the way, right now those managers of big clubs are going to try and exert even more control over their squads, which is a shame, to make sure that they get the kind of ground out result. But I say to you the words Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, Ronaldo, and where do they play? And these are the best players in the world. Sorry. Because when they come up against English teams, they look better and they play better as individuals. And so I'm not sure that the best teams in the English Premier League are not the best teams in the world at the moment.
I don't know. I disagree, because when I see a result like United absolutely pumping PSG, and they're 14th in the league, and PSG's come from an 8-0 victory the week, like that week, and they beat them like that. It was such an interesting game to watch. It's like United have got the absolute wood on that team. Absolutely have got the wood on them,
Yeah, I see your point.
You know what I mean? And then I see all of these English teams that are just, it's like when they're playing in Europa League, it's like they're in first gear, it doesn't look, it suits them.
Okay.
They're so used to that physicality.
Let's go player for player then. Who's the better defender in the English Premier League than Sergio Ramos? Who would you rather be on the ball in any given moment? Excuse me, no one. Who would you rather hold up the ball and link the play in the English Premier League than Benzema?
Oh, that's tough, because I don't know. It's like I really like the City forwards. I love Sterling. I love Aguero. I think they're very, very good. They've been proven forwards. Mo Salah's excellent. Mane, Sané, all of these
Hang on.
phenomenal.
Benzema's a number 9, right?
Hmm.
I think Firmino probably comes close.
Mm-hmm.
But I also put it to you that if Real Madrid wanted Firmino, they would have him. They want Benzema. Who's a more creative left back in the world than Marcelo?
True. Doesn't mean, but this is what I'm talking about. We're talking about individuals here. I'm talking about teams at the moment.
Sure.
I get it. You can have all these amazing players. Look at Barca's team, full of champions. They don't work well as a team.
At the moment, they're not working well as a team. But I also put it to you that the thing which makes amazing players is that they play against amazing players week in, week out. The reason why Messi is such a good player is that he plays against those bloody Spanish defenses every week. Maybe. Like, is it this or is it that? And some of those English teams, like Aston Villa, I think if they went up against, I don't know, Deportivo, well, that's what the Europa League's for anyway. So maybe you're right. Maybe the fact that the English teams are doing so well in the Europa League generally, at least till the penalty kicks or the knockout stages, means that they do have that depth.
Well, it's because they're playing such physical footy, and you can see that the Europa League for them is like a break. And also the beauty around the Champions League and the Europa League at the moment is that it's going to suit the English teams to a T, because they've gone back to 3 on and off. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in the European footy, they can rotate 5 players. That's only going to help the English teams if they're playing such hard footy at home like that, and such physical footy, to be able to rotate 5 players. It's only going to help them this season in particular,
Yeah. What do you think of that? I mean, I've noticed, I don't know when it was decided, but I noticed the players are allowed inside the penalty box. When did that come into effect? I mean, the backwards kickoff as well. That's been around a couple of years now. But when did this penalty box thing come in? And 5 substitutes? I mean, it seems reasonable. But I also think it's one of the things that annoys me about basketball is that they do that to keep the game fast.
Yeah.
But I also like it when teams are slugging it out like boxers. If you freshen up every position all the time, especially if you're a defensive coach, just keep the game boring.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole thing was for this season, and the reason why they wanted to keep the five was just because of the congestion of fixtures, and they didn't want to see all these great players getting injured in the games because you've got to also put into account all of the national league, league cups. You've got to put in the internationals. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it was inevitable that at least one or two of the competitions had to keep this five rotation. I think it's mainly to make these players not die this season.
When do you think they'll abandon this? And do you think maybe five substitutions will start to become a general topic of conversation?
I hope it does. I hope they get rid of it at the end of the year. I get it for this season, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I think for the English clubs to do what they're doing, just to keep it as three, I think it's very, very smart for them to be very competitive in the European Cup this year, in the European Cups this season. I think it's brilliant. And they're only going to be more fit because of it. So we shall see. And that's why at this stage, this season, at this current moment, that's why I think the English league is the best because they're playing the more normal style of three substitutions, and they're just going to be stronger physically, mentally, and I think it's showing in all the European Cups. And I mean, look at what United did to Leipzig, 5-0. There's like kids at a candy store, Phil. There's kids at a candy store, and they're a good team. Leipzig's an excellent, excellent team.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched that game. Rashford couldn't feel happier for a person what he's doing for the world,
smashing him
for the poor of England. What's really appalling is that not more of them don't. They should be doing this every week, and they simply don't give a crap. Whereas I love that attitude, and when he scores, it feels different, you know.
I tell you what, though, for me, with the type of caliber of player, and I've said this on a number of our podcasts, European football really suits United, suits their midfield to a T, suits their forward structure. It's that little bit less physical, and they really thrive on that. They really, really thrive on that. And Pogba ends up playing brilliant games during it. It just fits him, and he can do what he does brilliantly in the French team when he's playing Champions League. And he's always playing well. And then, of course, Fernandes, he's looking great. They look really good together in the European Cups.
Maybe everyone's written them off too soon. I mean, I also feel a bit for Maguire. He's not that old, is he? He's a little bit young.
5 or 26 or something like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But I think there's more from him to come. I think that horrible gaffe that he made that got replayed all over everywhere. I challenge you to go back and look at some of your favourite players from the past.
Don't need to.
They've all had their moments.
Look, I've seen it with Arsenal for the last 7 years. We can just talk about our defender. Let's talk about our defenders for a sec. Koscielny, apparently the world's greatest defender ever. Mertesacker, actually, I didn't mind. He was slow, but I thought he was quite decent. Let's have a look at some of Holding's mistakes. Let's have a look at Mustafi, £34 million transfer from Villarreal. Come on.
Because he's got all those good football qualities, but he's not playing well.
Doesn't have the mental capacity.
Doesn't
have the mental capacity. But the main game that I wanted to talk to you, because you never get to speak about your team very much, and I love that you go for Barcelona. What did you think of Barcelona's performance? And we'll finish off with this against Juve in particular. I'll leave you to the floor.
Oh God, where do I start? Well, first of all, poor old Griezmann, not getting on well, clearly not warmed to by his teammates. Gets his first chance and smashes it into the inside of the post. And you think if he can just get a couple of goals, he'll kind of be embraced. And even then, him and Messi had some incredible interplay. Messi then missed. So can you say that's not gelling? It doesn't look like the Barca of old at all. The way they move the ball around is completely different. Juventus didn't really look like they were going to dominate at any stage. Mind you, the hat-trick of offsides against poor old Morata which a lot of those before VAR, they just would have been goals, because he was offside by a bee's fingernail. And I think Barca's problem at the moment, for example, my favorite version of Barca, and this is a little bit controversial, and I feel I can change this at any time, but when I look back with affection, with Eto'o there, Eto'o wasn't passing or looking for Messi all the time. Ronaldinho wasn't looking for these guys all the time. They were kind of they had that arrogance, like, I'm the main guy. Whereas at the moment, you see these Barca players getting into position. Griezmann even has to be affecting him, and Dembele. And they, in the back of the mind, you can almost see it, like they're wondering, where is Messi? And Messi's made a run, and so they don't pull the trigger the same way. And this was really evident. I call it Messi-itis.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen to other teams, and it's kind of not Messi's fault.
No.
But they kind of need to ignore him a bit more and just let him insert himself into the game wherever.
It's so interesting that you talk about this. There was a podcast that Ian Wright was talking about in the last couple of days on a specific old-style Arsenal podcast, and he talked about the ins and outs of a team and how you need to be able to work out how to play with your teammates. And he was talking about his relationship with Bergkamp. And at the beginning, whenever Bergkamp tried to pass the ball to Ian Wright, it would always hit him at the back of his foot. And he was going, why is this happening all the time? And then Bergkamp would always get angry at him. He's like, you're moving too early with the ball. I'm passing it to you at the right time. And the more Ian Wright thought about it, the more he realised, Bergkamp's pass is absolutely bang on. I just need to wait a little bit and understand this relationship. As soon as he worked that out, that was a lethal partnership for 2 or 3 years. Because he realised Bergkamp's trigger point when he kicked the ball was ultimately perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, an interesting way of assessing it, I would say that Bergkamp was really just suggesting, look, if you move a bit later, then the way I pass will work better. Let's put it like that, rather than he was right. Yeah. And by the way, Ian Wright often praises great footballers like that, but who praises him? That guy was a genius.
Yeah.
Seriously, Ian Wright is one of my favourite players. Very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Very unpredictable physical movements, absolutely lethal and killer player. And I really enjoy listening to his punditry, actually.
Yeah, I love it. But this is what I'm talking about with Barcelona. It's that these players really haven't played with Messi that much. They just need to actually just take their time, make these few errors, work out what they need to do. It takes time. It takes 10, 11 games. Once you work out that partnership, it's unbeatable. You know what I mean? Because you have to work out the nuances and the way people trigger their points and kicks and passes and thoughts and structures. It just takes time. And sometimes I feel with this generation, they're too impatient. And that's why you get these really boring zone-off games, because they think what they've done well is to keep teams at bay so then they can't get told off for doing the wrong thing, which you've said a number of times on our podcast.
Oh, have I?
Number of times. Right? So, no, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Well, that Barca-Juventus game was, and even at halftime, I think De Jong came off, and the old warhorse came out, Busquets. Really changed the game, just his style of play. Messi did his usual thing where, except, he hasn't scored for a while now, and he did miss that shot. Mini crisis for Mr. Mini Majestic. Still made crucial plays. Are we seeing the decline of Mr. Messi? I mean, all that stuff with him wanting to leave, and he's like a wolf, and his pack has changed, and he doesn't know how much to impose himself. I think like I said, my favourite bit of football was when he was emerging.
Yeah. It's so interesting though, Bill. It's like, Aubameyang hasn't scored for 3 games in the EPL. Messi hasn't scored for 2 games or 3 games. Is this the end of them? This is the quality of these players, that people just expect them to score all the time. You've made it as a soccer player if that's the case. If people are crying wolf because you haven't scored in 3 games. Whoop-de-doo. You know what I mean? That's what I love about it. That's when you know, that's when you can honestly say as a footballer, you've made it. If you haven't scored in 2 games or 3 games and people are crying that you haven't scored, man, what a position in life to be.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
You know?
look at his other qualities, including Ronaldo. I often think this, that when he does drop deep to pick up the ball,
Yep.
The game looks even easier for him there.
Yep.
So in other words, anyone else who's playing at centre mid, if they got that ball, they might lose it or do something.
Yep.
But Messi he's got a million hours around him and he just passes it off, always the right pass. Ronaldo was the same. Just even highlights how really good they are in those much more pressured situations when you're trying to score.
That's the beauty about them. They don't need to score to have an influence on the game. They can literally just pass it to anybody else who can tap it in. And that's what you want to see with these quality footballers. Anyways, this is a breath of fresh footy. Lovely to have the PM here with me. It's Phil and Matty. Our PM sessions are always about talking about the things that we see, that we love about footy. And it's been such an interesting last couple of weeks. And we hope that you can join us again very soon for another PM session. I'm Matt, the voice of truth, and we have Brutal Phil, who's right on the money with all of his comments. And we bid you a good morning from a breath of fresh footy.
Adieu.